Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing you another episode in the Ultimate PSS Education Series. This is number 19. And what is your APV? Well, it says there it's your accumulated phase value. Does it affect you? Let's find out. But before we do, just look at the disclaimer: facts and figures, information only, not advice. Now, the accumulated phase value won't be a problem for, well, probably the majority of you. It'll be those people on bigger incomes. It'll be people who have been accumulating super over a longer period of time. And what your accumulated phase value is really the total value in your PSS and any transfer amount. So it's your total value of your PSS. But what you've got to consider is not only is it what you've got in your PSS, it's what you may have in any other super fund as well. So you might have a salary sacrifice account and you've been putting money into that, or you may have a little old super fund hanging around since time that you keep on forgetting about. Your accumulated phase value for super is the total amount of money you've got in all of your super funds all added up together. Now, on the bottom there of page 5 of your annual statement, you'll see your benefit details, and on the top row of that little section there, you'll see your accumulated phase value. Now, what it comes down to is your accumulated phase value underneath the current cap? Now, the current cap for accumulated phase value is $1.9 million. And what they're saying is that effectively, you're really capped. You're not allowed to get more than $1.9 million into super. That's what they're trying to suggest. Because the cap was only 1.7 as of June 30. This thing is effectively going up in $100,000 steps. It went up by $200,000 last year because of the higher inflation rate. So this 1.9 will indeed go to 2 million and 2.1 and so forth as time goes on. Now, it's not to be confused with a thing you may have heard of called the transfer balance cap, which is also 1.9. So this is where it gets awfully confusing with all these acronyms of APVs and TBCs and so forth. But in this particular case, what we're worried about here is that in theory, once you get more than $1.9 million into super, the government says that's pretty well enough money that you need, and hence we're not going to let you put money in. Now, of course, there are people out there with, $100 million in super because they got it in before these rules even came into place. Or, there's nothing stopping you from growing your super fund past 1.9. It just says that once you get to $1.9 million in super across all of your super fund, you are not allowed to contribute to that super fund ever more after tax. Now, this does not stop you from doing salary sacrifice or having the employer put money in. It just means that you can't, if just dropping in a lump of money from, let's say, poor Aunt Mabel dies and leaves you $100,000, you couldn't just do an after-tax non-concessional contribution into another super fund because your total value is over that amount. Now, so far, it's not too much of a problem because, if you've got 1.9 in super, and of course, if you had a partner and they've got 1.9 as well, we've got some nice problems here. But what it comes down to is this. This is very, very, very important for people in the PSS as their values do indeed go up. I'm certainly starting to see as people do forward projections, they may not have 1.9 in there yet, but people who have started early and done big contributions, and as their salary goes up, certainly will hit this accumulated phase value before they get to retirement. So what does that mean? It means that if you're not allowed to contribute after tax, what about your 10% contribution or your 5% contribution to the PSS? That's an after-tax contribution. So if the government won't let you contribute, doesn't that mean that you wouldn't get any matching? And all of a sudden you wouldn't be getting a 0.31 multiple. You'd only get the 8% basic and the 3% productivity. You'd only be getting 11% going in, or a multiple of 0.11. Your growth of your PSS would effectively fall off a cliff once you get to this value. So the government sort of said, well, that's a bit unfair that we're changing the rules on you and we're limiting and hampering you what you can do with your PSS. So what they've said is, yes, we will let you put in more money, but we're going to tax you for doing it. And so what happens here is that if you exceed this, now when I say exceed, it's not the instant that you do exceed it, it's just that is your balance over this as of the 30th of June. So even if your balance was 1.8999 on the 30th of June, you can still do whatever you like in the following year, effectively under normal sort of rules. It's just the fact that once you've hit the 1.9 or whatever the cap is at the time, as of the 30th of June, then we've got problems into the new financial year. So if you did say, look, gee, I don't want my PSS to slow down, I want to keep on contributing, they will not stop you. But what will happen is your PSS contribution under those circumstances would then be treated as an excess non-concessional contribution, meaning you're exceeding the limit. They'll let you do it, but that contribution would then be taxed at the highest marginal tax rate. So you're virtually going to lose nearly half of what you put in effectively in tax. Now, of course, generally speaking, this is only affecting people on higher incomes anyway. And so a lot of people on big incomes are already losing half of their contribution, or it's costing them half of their money to put this in because they're getting taxed on the money, then put it into the PSS, to then turn around and then have it taxed again at the highest marginal tax rate. Ouch, ouch, ouch. So what are their options? The option would be you could stop contributing, and apply that money that you were into the PSS, perhaps to pay down debt or invest it somewhere else outside of super. Because you can do salary sacrifice, you might be able to do some concessional contributions, getting tax deductions. But yes, your PSS would then slow down in its growth. Wouldn't go backwards, it just would slow down in how it's growing. So if you decided that, no, I want my PSS because that's going to give me this beautiful thing in retirement, you can keep on contributing, and yes, you pay the tax. So what you've got to do here is to basically calculate, am I better off for paying this tax each year to ensure that my PSS is going to grow, giving me a bigger pension over the rest of my lifetime? Now, there is no right answer to this. And again, this is really where we, if you want to come and have a chat to us about crunching some numbers on this, if you're not sure how to do it yourself, to apply what you could do with the money, what could it earn, what is the tax saving, what would that other money mean to you over time compared to simply paying the tax. And so, look, very, 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 very generally, I've sort of seen that, okay, again, depends on numbers, but quite often if it's only a few years to go, it can be a case that just paying the tax, and then literally, getting the benefit of the PSS in a few years can generally be the way to go. But if you're certainly going to hit this thing, 10 years out from your retirement, or you certainly want to be doing some numbers to see what you could be doing with that money alternatively somewhere else. Because obviously, if you stop your contribution, you've got that money, you're still paying tax on it to put it somewhere else, but you've got that money, you're not paying the 10%, you've got that money to apply to somewhere, and then you're not paying that high level of tax on that 10% as well. So it literally needs to do some numbers on it. Now, as I say, this APV thing is not to be confused with the TBC, even as though the same numbers. But people on these high incomes, generally speaking, will get dragged up into this TBC. I will be doing a video on TBC later on as well. But I'm thinking that anybody on higher incomes here, you may want to indeed go to our website and basically register for what's called my TBC issues webinar, because it covers the APV, the TBC, the RPV, the TSP, and all these other acronyms. For people on higher incomes, you really probably need to get your head around it. So you can register for that. Next one's, I think, coming up in Feb, I think. and we'll guide you through that as well. But there'll be future videos on our Facebook page and on YouTube covering this, and obviously lots of other topics. Thanks for joining me.